Donny.
Oh,
But you notice right at the front, so they got this front segment. They got a bunch of repeating segments, and centipedes have one pair of legs per segment. But that front segment doesn't have any obvious legs. But the front legs are modified into venom injecting fangs, and those are the toxic argnaths, which are hardcore as all get out.
Dude, look how thick that is. I didn't know it was that big. That thing's been
Yeah.
in the room the whole time?
Yes. Yeah.
I work in this room.
Yeah. All right.
Right now we're going to play with a red spitting cobra. I think the snake is actually going into shed, and so we're going to just demonstrate a couple of the things that you're going to want to deal with. So it is a cobra, so this is a spitting cobra, has very accurate ability within 20 feet to spray forward little slits on the fangs. It can spray with very strong pressure venom at your face. And so I'm wearing these lovely glasses, and just like Timmy is, and this is once again this representation of using your tools. We're going to use a handling tube for a lot of venomous. When we're observing animals, we want to keep the bitey part under control. So you need to use hooks. He's also using glasses, because if you were not to use these safety glasses, they spray you in the eyes. It can cause temporary blindness or long-term problems. If you have any cuts on your face or anything like that, those are all aspects where venom could be introduced into your bloodstream. So you want to be really careful. This is no game. We're gonna probe the snake. We're just gonna demonstrate probing snakes. So we figured, why don't we just do the whole thing together. He might be going in the shed. He looks a little, this animal looks dark. This is red spitting cobra. Yeah, it's definitely going in the shed. Sadly, as far as dramaticness, these animals are, look at that belly. Show them the belly, Timmy. Look how friggin' glorious that is. So this animal is not very aggro, doesn't feel threatened. This animal could care less that we're here, but naturally this animal is very, very defensive. It can bite you. Oh, goodness gracious. All right.
Too easy.
He made that look too
Way
easy.
too easy.
Okay. All right, so let's take a good look at this snake. This is a beautiful animal.
It's a cool position you have it in right there.
So remember, these are venomous reptiles. Venom meaning they're capable of inflicting some kind of injury through having fangs and venom. If they're poisonous, I'd actually have to eat this animal like a pufferfish, and it has some kind of poison in its tissue. So it's venomous. And this is really an animal to be respected. Just an amazing animal. But look, I mean, the color is just wonderful. So
stunning. Oh, stop! You're not going to bite my finger.
We're basically going to just try to assess what's the appropriate size probe.
That door, it keeps opening its mouth, and you can actually see the fangs.
Yeah. So they get. So this animal.
I can get that.
Stop. Yeah. Stop. Hold it still to me.
There you go. Hold on. So what's it doing?
Okay, so this animal, this is very unnatural. The animal's trapped inside a tube, so it's kind of panicking, so it's going to do the gnawing. And was that your phone?
No.
Whose phone was that? This is a little bit of an experience for this animal. The animal's frustrated, probably. It's feeling very defensive. So this animal would easily go onto my hand, bite. If I could put a cucumber or something like that in there, it'll just chomp on that cucumber. It's like no joke.
They also have fixed fangs and not hinged fangs like a rattlesnake or a gaboon viper or anything like that. They're fixed fangs, so they'll just open their mouth and just basically start stabbing you and hold on and bite and stab one fang, the other fang, the other fang, the other fang.
So they have a couple different ways to defend themselves. So defending, wow, he's really, look at his
there you go.
chewing.
You can see the little fangs right there, very small fixed fangs.
Wow.
That is just, that's awesome. So what they'll do for being defensive is they're going to hood up, they're going to display, they're going to act aggro. It's very much a showy type thing to keep a predator at bay. And what it's trying to do is trying to get to space where they then can do something defensively, which is shoot down a hole or escape. Then once we've trapped this animal, so biting you and venomation is, you know, key. These have a pressurized venom delivery system, so they have short fixed fangs. They also have the slit on the front so they can spray. So this is basically they contract a muscle that goes over a large venom gland, and it will project this venom, and you know, easily 20 feet with Timmy's exhibited, you know, he's showing it on his face and stuff like that. This animal is still not very worried about us. And then the final thing what they'll do is they may excrete urea, urates, they might poop on you, and they can also musk. And that basically means, like, you know, it's like, I'm desperation. So even though this animal is venomous and stuff like that, it's still, you know, it worries about its you know, its mortality.
Spitting cobras are also one of the only species of venomous snake that use venom as a defense mechanism. So if a rattlesnake bites me, I'm not going to die instantly. I've got plenty of time to still kill the animal. That's not a good defense mechanism. But a spitting cobra, you get within 10 feet, it sprays you in the eyes, your eyes are burning, you can't see. That's a great defense mechanism. That animal gets plenty of time to run away while you're wiping your face on the dirt trying to wipe the venom out of your eyes.
Also, as these animals control the amount of venom, so this animal, so sometimes when people are dealing with venomous animals in captivity, there's something called the dry bite. And the dry bite basically means the animal, you got nailed, you got bit, but the animal held on to its venom, so it didn't inject you. And sometimes that's defensive, and sometimes these dry bites can be 45-50% of overall bites where the person gets away with nothing, or maybe a little bit of venom on the fangs. So they actually control it. So this spitting cobra, every time it whacks you with a little bit of venom, it doesn't just go once and then it's empty. It's gonna just sit here, little small rations, because it knows it needs, you know, it needs its full defense going. So this animal, they're not dumb animals. They actually think, and a lot of people don't think or realize that reptiles are capable of thinking, but they're actually quite able to think and to problem solve. They learn how to figure out how to get out of cages. So let's go back to the probe size. So this little probe would be pretty good for, you know, maybe if we're gonna sex like a ball python or a little boa. This one right here is a little bit fancier. It's got a ball on here. And what we're doing is with the probe, we're looking to put this into an inverted hemipene, one side of the hemipene. And so it's basically like a stretched out sock within the animal. And what they do is when they are having sex and they're mating, they avert this peen, and the peen is covered with little spikes. And little spikes are, so when he finally gets it into the female's cloaca and he achieves penetration, listen to this, he'll lock up, and the peen will be, you know, be averted into her cloaca, goes inside her, and then basically swells. And then that basically locks them together. And this is the time you never want to disturb an animal. So any kind of, you know, breeding snake, you never want to disturb them when they're breeding, because there's always a possibility the female tries to get away and they pull apart. And because there's little spikes and spines that give it some traction on that peen, it can tear the cloacal lining, and it can perforate that. And if you perforate the cloacal lining and you get any side, any of your GI, lower GI flora into the body cavity, you get a horrible infection. You get a systemic infection, and the animal will ultimately die, and it's very fatal. So whenever you see your snakes breed, leave them alone. But right now we're just going to sex them. So I'm going to pick that one. They're about the same size as this one. I do like the little ball on that. So you have to practice care, because you can easily push this down the inverted peen and pop it out through the end. So females will have a little scent gland, and it's very, very short. And what we're doing is we're going to put this into the animal, and we're trying to see the depth. So males are generally going to probe 7, 12, sometimes even 15 scales, and we're going to measure against the cloaca. So let's take a look. So we want to, I'm using an antibiotic ointment and just something. So you can easily clean this first with alcohol, and then you put an ointment on there. You want to be gentle. This is something where you don't want the animal being frantic. We want to slow it down, and we want to look at this animal. This is a very, very muscular animal, so they can resist. So what I want to do is I want to keep the spine straight. I don't want to do bending back. Sometimes people try to sex animals, and if they use right here and they bend it back, I've seen animals with these humps. So they have these little bumps along their spine. So it's probably a really good idea for me to keep this going, and I also want to keep this stable. I don't want this animal being frantic. I'm not trying to terrorize this animal. So I put it in, and this is a pretty gentle process. So you see the animal's tail's wiggling. So what a male can do, a male could easily tighten its peen with the muscle control and prevent the probe from going in. So I'm just going to sit here and kind of just work it. We already know this is a female. So with this female, I'm going to take my thumb once I feel like I've reached maximum depth, and I'm going to pull it up. So you see that this only went just about almost 3 subcaudals, they call this. So I'm measuring against each one of these unique little ventral scales. And those are called caudal scales. And so we're going to go like that. And it's a very, very short distance. So we just went inside her scent gland. So there's really nothing going on. So Timmy doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to make him pull out the male so we can play.
Thank you.
You really want to make sure that you have good communication. And I know it's really boring to see this kind of handling, but I want to be able to keep venomous animals down the road. I have Timmy doing my venomous. Jacob's learning some venomous right now. He's working with some of the mangroves and stuff like that. You always want to have somebody under you, somebody else that's capable. Obviously, I do venomous. Timmy's my main venomous guy, and we're bringing up another guy just so he can learn some of the stuff. But you have to start out with, if you are going to work with venomous, you want to start with safe species. So using rear-fanged animals that could be a bit aggro, but that don't have a venom delivery system. So venom delivery system is a pressurized venom system where if they were to bite you, even a small little bite, and they inject it, it's basically like getting nailed with a hypodermic needle full of venom, and that's really nasty. So you really want to be careful. And the way the laws are going, and everybody's afraid of snakes. Keeping venomous snakes is pretty much, you have to be at the top of your game, and you have to be very responsible, methodical, always using your tools, and this is a shout out to you. We want to use a bunch of your tools. Great stuff, but we need some new tools. Tubes break, so you get a whole tube set, but they generally don't have all this electrical tape on the end.
We need clear ones too, so we can see the animal.
That's perfect.
Yep.
So I'm gonna
get them wide open.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna palpate this female. So I'm palpating. I'm trying to feel ovum that are in her ovaries, and as they grow, at some point they're palpable. So let's say like the size of a marble or a malted milk ball. And I'm gonna use something like a pillowcase right here to kind of, it's humid in here and it's hot. So I wanna make it so it's slick. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna palpate, and I'm feeling for any follicle. Has she fed recently?
Week and a half ago.
Okay.
But she's pooped since then.
So week and a half for a cobra means that basically the food should be out of her GI tracts or her stomach and her upper and lower intestine. I'm feeling a lot of fat. So if she indeed has follicles right now, let me palpate this. Okay, there's no eggs in her. Yep. So I basically, sometimes you have a little bit like, you can whatever, but I'm not feeling any follicles in her. But I'd be able to palpate over it. You have to use a soft touch, and I'm getting my fingertips right up in the ventral area. So once again, the pillowcase kind of allows me to slide along, and I'm kind of pulling on this animal. I'm keeping this tail over here, so I want her where she's not fighting me. I'm putting my foot against Timmy's thigh just so I have something to push against. Nice and easy. You're not putting her through any stress. All right, so this is a big, fat snake. Timmy is feeding this thing well.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm going to shed too.
Yeah.
They're both shedding. These are fantastic looking animals. The red is so good. And right now when they're shedding, Timmy, you've made these things way too soft. A little defensiveness. Oh, God. This is... All right. We're making this look way too easy.
Yeah, that went very well.
So we've never actually sexed these since when I bought them. They were like in cups, and it was a nice little captive-born pair. So we're gonna see what sex this one is. I have my ideas, but let's. Timmy, can you turn it over a little bit? Look at that glorious belly. God, look at that. Okay, so this animal's fighting me a bit, Donnie. So we're gonna go a little bit more this way.
There we go.
So once again, we're maintaining the straight spine. We want to make sure the probe, the diameter of the probe, is still small enough to go inside the everted hemipene. Cobras have fair size penes, so they're pretty thick. But I wouldn't want to take a very large probe and push it in there because I can damage that pene and you're going to cause scarring. So this guy's fighting me right now. So anyway, so we got really, yeah, he started fighting me. That's a little bit, I probably say that's probably a little thicker than I like. So if I use the probe, that was, let's see, too thin. If I'm not really gentle and careful with my technique, this thing almost has a point. Getting this okay?
Yeah.
And that would be too small, and I could easily perforate the end of the pene. So lots of bad things happen. So you could cause, if I damage the pene at all, I can cause scarring. So when then the animal tries to inflate and reverse its pene, avert it, so he can, you know, go into a female and breed. If I prevent it from going the other direction, which is like a sock, so we have a sock and we're pulling out the center of the sock and pulling it through. If I did any kind of damage to that animal, it wouldn't be able to avert its pene. But an animal could easily have a damaged pene, lose its pene, and still has another one that could still allow it to breed.